Hi everyone, it's me, Darlene. I am back with a quilt block that I can honestly say I don't think I've done before. I think I would remember. Very easy, and I really like it, so we're going to try it together. I watched a video, and I will link to that video down below. That person used 5-inch squares, so I thought I would be a little different and do 6.5-inch squares, just so we can, see what size this comes out to in the end. Hers came out to, I think she said she could have trimmed it to maybe 7.5, but she trimmed it to 7. I'm starting with 6.5, so I'm thinking we'll end up with maybe an 8.5-inch block. Here's the deal. You need something for the center, and then you need, so this is a 6.5-inch square. You could use any size squares you want. And then I have two 6.5-inch squares. I'm using the same print. What we're going to be doing is cutting these in a diagonal, so we have 4 triangles. And then we'll be adding the 4 triangles to the edges of this block. So I will have the 4 all matchy-matchy. If you use 2 different colors, 2 different prints, then you'll have like one print top and bottom and then another print on the other sides. If you wanted it really scrappy, then you could just cut a bunch of your squares, and if you're making a whole quilt, you will be cutting a bunch of squares, and then you could put 4 that don't match at all. Now, I think that would be really cool for a quilt where you want it to look scrappy, but maybe you want all your centers to be the same. Like, just imagine all the centers are black, and then you have like some bright, wild, funky, crazy things going on around it. Or you could use squares that come from panels. I often get panels that have like 12 squares that are all like 6 inches or whatever. That would be so nice. I'll be on the lookout for that. But we're going to keep it very simple. I thought I'd just go with this mottled color for the center and then flowers on the other side. So I'm just going to put these together, and I'm going to cut on the diagonal. Corner to corner. Easy as that. Now we are going to put this here. It's a house. It's a very pretty house. And if you want, you can find your centers. I'm going to fold this, and I'm going to finger press. I'm also going to fold this and finger press. I'm trying not to stretch the fabric, just pressing. Now I can lay this out. I'm going to want it like this, so I'm going to flip it this way, and I can see where I finger pressed. So I'm putting the finger pressed marks together and also here. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to sew right across. And this is what we have. I need to do some more house quilt blocks. And I'm just going to finger press at this point. Now I imagine you could go in the round if you want to, but I'm going to do top and bottom. Same thing. I can take this guy and finger press. That kind of worked out good. I only need to press the 2 ends. And like this, flipping it over, finger pressed marks together. And sew. I went ahead and pressed now. And I want to tell you that I found it easier to sew with this fabric on top, because then I could see when I was hopping on to this square. So I liked it that way best. And now I'm going to just trim those little dog ears. I just put my ruler even with the edge of that square. Gee, we're almost done. What a fun block. And once again, now if I want, I can eyeball that enough. I can see that this is pretty even. But, for the heck of it, let's do the finger press. That really did work. And it only needs to be there and like down here. Doesn't take too much. Perfect. I'm going to sew here, and then I will put this one down here. We are going to be done. I'm totally impressed by this block. It was so simple, especially if you have pre-cuts. So simple to make, and it really looks good. I've not ever done anything with a square on point like this. I would love to do a whole quilt top, but you know, I just don't have time for that. But you can do that if you want. Now I'm coming out to about 10 inches square, so I'm going to trim to 9.5. Do remember, you don't want to just take it all off on one side. You want to keep this as even as possible. But it's okay if it's not perfect. You know, when you join these, nobody's going to notice. Since I need to trim 1/2 inch total on each side, I'm going to take 1/4 inch off each side. And I'm just going to kind of, you know, even this out on my lines, and I'm just going to take 1/4 inch and 1/4 inch. You will need to trim because there's no way that we're going to have a perfect straight line after sewing those triangles on. And we are done. And you know what I thought of? I sell 6.5 inch squares, so for those of you who buy my fabric, you probably have some of those that you can use. And I also sell 9.5 inch squares. And since I was able to trim this down to 9.5 inches, you could alternate. You could use these blocks along with just some plain 9.5 inch blocks. They would work together perfectly. And then you don't have to make as many of these kinds of blocks. You know, if you have a block you like to make, you don't have to make your whole quilt be all those blocks. You can switch it up. I hope you enjoyed this block. I hope you learned something along the way. I certainly did. Please subscribe so we can keep on learning together. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.